Today, I insisted that we produce a show based on one of your last articles that you wrote for ParisianGentleman.com, and that you called The Mysteries of the Tailored Jacket. Why did you use the word mysteries of the tailored jacket? Is it to be dramatic?
Well, I didn't really want to be dramatic. I was just trying to convey something that happened to me. And that is that for years, I didn't even know half of what I wrote in this article, because something after I'm guessing 8 years in this business, I was both dressing, bespoke, made to measure, some ready to wear. Yeah. And then looking at thousands of images, what used to be Tumblr. Remember when Tumblr was big?
Yeah.
How many hours did I spend on Tumblr?
Oh, yeah, you spend...
Countless.
I can testify. She's looking at thousands of jackets, almost, I would say, hundreds every day for sure.
So I have my Tumblr degree.
Yeah.
And so, other than the other... So anyway, and after then going to Instagram and seeing... I'm being bombarded with all these images of suits, studying the details, understanding the overall silhouette or shape of the body and how different elements of the suit shifted your perception of the body. Mm. After that 8-year period, things started to click, and I just understood better how the components made up the whole.
Yeah, and this is funny what you say, because I was rereading, and I will read a few extracts of your magnificent article, but basically you boil down this year, almost a decade of studying the suits, to 3 things: the fit around the collar, which is very important, the button placement, and the pocket placement. So it's fairly simple.
Yeah, I don't think it summarizes everything. It just summarizes those things that maybe you hadn't thought of. Okay, a lot of you had thought about the collar gap, of course, but there's something else maybe you hadn't thought about that we're going to reveal.
So you just explained that sometimes you put on a jacket and you still notice after all these years a few things that could have been done better, and you say everybody has different proportion. One ear may be lower than the other ear, a torso may be oddly or even truncated, shoulders may slope downwards. I know this very well.
You have one lower shoulder.
Yeah, my left shoulder is way lower than my right shoulder. My mom did a good job on many things, not on that, but it's okay. My tailor is fixing this, of course. That is his job. It's a tailor's job to work with different morphologies by adjusting elements of a jacket to balance your overall look. But even if you are not using a tailor, and that's all the point, because not everybody is using a tailor, it's important to know the 3 areas you have to look at.
And you know what? You may not even know you have one shoulder lower than the other. You may not know you have one ear lower than the other until you go in for fitted glasses.
That's for sure.
It's things that other people may not perceive, but the tailor is usually, if he's an experienced tailor, will be fine-tuned enough to note the differences from one half of your body compared to the other half of your body.
You're right, but that's something which is also magical in the sartorial world and in the tailoring world, that there's okay, you can be extremely experienced, and as you write on your article, and that's true, I've seen it myself, is that sometimes, you said, I've seen top tailors craft suits with glaring color gaps, and maestros, real maestros, who have been working decades positioning the waist working button, for example, so high that when button you look like, you
it looks like the chest button instead of the waist button if you were standing at a distance.
Exactly, and you say, I've seen lower pockets and breast pockets on sports coats and suit coat placed too high on the body, as if a puppeteer was yanking the garment upwards from overhead. Yeah, and that's true, because even, and it's true also specifically for very experienced bespoke tailor who have been doing the same jacket over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, and you have to remember, bespoke tailors aren't doing like we are. They're not looking at, back when Tumblr was big, they were spending hours of a day looking at Tumblr, and they weren't reviewing Instagram pictures. They were doing their job, and the really popular ones had so much work that they really couldn't get empirical evidence of the specific little components of a coat that will make a big difference, or of a jacket, or of a suit.
Yes.
And so, of course, you're going to fall into a pattern over the years and miss things sometimes.
Exactly. And you write three, ladies and gentlemen, only 3. Well, with a little bit of subdivision.
Unusual things. These are unusual
Three
things.
key things to notice before acquiring a jacket. So remember that if you have to take notes, if you really are into, it's a little bit, if you are a little bit advanced on your sartorial journey, even if you're a beginner, after all.
Oh, well, if you're a beginner and you don't want to know all this, don't stress yourself out. Just wait a year and then watch this.
Exactly.
So
and
yeah,
then
it might be a little much for you.
And if you have to watch one episode of Sartorial Talk, it may be this one. If you're interested in tailoring, of course, we're not speaking about shoes or accessories. So the first area is everything that happens around the neck. Okay, so of course, Sonya traumatized the world with the infamous color gap. So we're not going to re-demonstrate again because...
Can I qualify? Okay, I want the world, our sartorial world, to know I do not criticize people who have collar gaps because we sometimes have collar gaps.
It happened to me yesterday.
We put our arm around somebody, all of a sudden, you get this big gap. Or maybe you're making...
You lost your brooch, baby.
It's my mom's brooch, and it's actually a lapel pin. It's like this.
Okay, put it back.
It clips right on the right side. Anyway, diversion there.
Yeah.
So what was the point that I was making?
I was saying that we receive so many emails of people who are obsessed and they see color gaps everywhere.
And so in this article, we used Prince Charles in the past as an example of someone who had a color gap because if Prince Charles has a color gap, of course, it's okay if you sometimes have a color gap. He's very well educated. Of course, he knows it very well and would prefer not to have one.
Yeah.
So qualification done.
Yeah. So in one word, if you never heard about this infamous color gap that Sonya has been, I say it again, traumatizing the sartorial world with. A color gap is when your jacket is too far from your shirt collar, and it should not be. Of course, sometimes when you make movements, it can happen, but when you are
when you lose weight, he lost 20 pounds.
I lost a lot of weight, and so I can confess, yesterday I took a picture, even at Chiffonelli, and then I had a jacket has not been altered, because that's another secret. When you are losing weight, don't rush to your tailors because you are so enthusiastic and have said, "Hey, Mr. Tailor, I lost 3 kilos, so please change all my wardrobe and alter all my jacket." And the problem is that most of the time, 3 weeks later, you have to go back much less enthusiastic to your tailor.
Have him let it out.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Lorenzo, I can't button my jacket again because I've been eating a little bit too much pot-au-feu and drinking maybe too much Bourgogne wine. Anyway, that's the second thing that is maybe less noticed and which is probably even more current. You can see it everywhere, is what you name the low resting jacket collar on the back of the neck.
It's almost as if, with a low resting jacket collar, it's almost as if someone just literally cut the top part of your collar off and it's lowered all the way down beneath your neck.
Yeah.
And you can expose the entire back of the shirt collar. And I don't know why no one talks about this. For me, proportionally, it took me a while to figure out what's going on because there was no collar gap. Mm-hmm. It's just that there was a sinking of the back of the collar. So
we're going to show a few pictures right now
collar
on the
shows.
screen.
It didn't. The back of the jacket didn't come up over the shirt collar at all. And I used to get people who were experts in the sartorial field, and they would talk to me about this back of the collar. It needs to be a little higher. I'm like, you're very picky. What are you talking about? And then I started noticing people who had no back of collar at all. And that's a low resting collar, and it does look strange when you know what you're seeing.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, is when you are showing too much, or if not all your shirt collar, that is because your jacket collar is resting too low on your neck. Is that
right?
correct?
It's as if you you didn't have a shirt collar and you're wearing a shirt and your whole neck was showing. It would be weird.
So we've seen very famous and well-dressed people having this problem of low resting collar, and this is something which. So we don't speak about color gap here. We're talking about the position.
Yes.
So the ultimate solution, you know what it is, ladies and gentlemen, is having long hair.
This covers a lot.
Yeah, because
of
me,
problems.
you don't see anything on my neck anyway. So it may be a solution, but
You're going to get some bad feedback on this one.
Well,
'Cause you're too much of a rebel. There's not enough rebels in the world who are going to grow their hair. I'm guessing.
I'm not sure about that. But so anyway, so now the next thing you pointed is the reverse. That is to say, when the color is too high, that is to say, you hardly see the back of the shirt.
Well, I'll tell you a secret. That was actually Hugo's idea. That doesn't bother me very much, but it does bother you. You don't like it when the entire back of the collar comes up all the way over the shirt collar and doesn't show the shirt.
It doesn't bother you?
It doesn't bother me. At least they're covering the back of the shirt collar.
Yeah.
But you don't. That is a proportional shift away from where it should be.
In my opinion, there's nothing more elegant than the back of your jacket. The neck come a half of your shirt collar. This is for me the most natural.
That's ideal.
Yeah, this is the most natural.
Because if we look at the back of your shirt, you're showing about, I would say, 2 centimeters or so of shirt collar. And it's coming up 50%. And that's your ideal.
Yeah, I think it's the best.
There's a
because
range,
honestly,
130
when sometimes you don't even see the shirt on the back, it's for me it looks like something's off.
Yeah, you don't like that at all.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, some may say those two people once again they are nitpicking, measuring centimeters.
Or how about
shirts.
there's bigger problems in the world than
yes,
this?
of course. But this is our subject, darling.
It is.
And when
it's our
some
life
people
subject,
invest money, it doesn't matter if for some people, $200 is a lot of money. For some other people, $5,000 is not a lot of money. So we speak to everybody here. We don't care whether your wallet is very thick and very full or not. It's just general rules that you can apply to be as elegant as you can, no matter how much money you have or don't have. And I think this is very important.
If you're going to spend, say, 6,000 euros on a suit or $6,500, whatever, on a suit, you want to walk into the tailoring salon and have the tailor measure you. Keep quiet during the first fitting. Let the tailor do the talking. Let him do the measuring. Let him ask the questions. Observe, answer his questions, choose your fabric. And then on the second fitting, armed with information, not to torture the tailor, but armed with information that will just give you a little indication of whether something's right or not right, what you like, what you don't like. You'll be able to have a conversation that makes sense with the tailor and in the end have a suit that pleases you. It's that simple. It's a big investment.
Yes. And if you spend $600 on the made-to-measure jacket or $1,000, insist on the fact, and when most of the MTM salons in the USA, in France, everywhere, you know the difference, that they measure you, but they have most of the time fitting jackets. They have prototypes of jackets on different, So just take the jacket. Normally they will say, okay, it's not of course with the fabric you choose, it's just to see the fit. So they can adjust an existing jacket and then send it to a factory, and then the suit comes back. Make sure that the fitting jacket has no problem like that, no color gap and no low resting color. Good. It's quite easy to spot.
It's simple.
So it's not a matter of money. Of course, if it's with a tailor, he can fix this until the last gesture. At least probably after 2 or 3 fittings, he can still have an action on that.
Right.
But if it's an MTM salon, you have one opportunity to fix this, and that's when you try the try-on jacket. But my advice, and I don't want to put a mess in the business, but if you receive a suit and you see that there's a color gap or low resting color, my advice is to refuse it, because this is not made to measure. This
or
is
ask for it to be adjusted correctly.
Of course, when I say refuse it, don't throw it away, but but don't take it like that, and ask them to try and fix it, which is not always possible, unfortunately.
Yes. Not rocket science, low resting color, color gap.
Exactly.
Simple.
So once again, don't be traumatized by that. The ideal theoretical solution is to have a color that sticks to your shirt color and a shirt color that shows 2 centimeters. 50% of your shirt color is the ideal proportions for me. The second thing, which is very important and has been a little bit less debated actually, and even on some forums, a little bit on some highly specialist geeks forum, sartorial geeks, but less on, in our show, we spoke about it a little bit. It's what we call for the people who are in the know, the button stance. That means the waist buttoning point. That is to say, the button you button when you button your jacket. And there's been a kind of a fashion, a trend these last years, maybe 5-6 years ago, where people were raising this button higher and higher, and sometimes they went way too high.
That's right. And we did use the example talking of Paul Stewart back
Yeah.
in the day.
Yeah.
Was it the Finesse
Oh
collection?
yeah, they created that. They don't do it anymore. They created this kind of Hollywood all-style looking
Golden age
of Hollywood
aesthetic.
We call Phineas Cole. I don't know if it still exists.
I don't think
and they were buttoning it a little bit too high.
But they did it for the mood, to create the ambiance.
Yeah.
But a lot of people took off with it, and so if you see someone who buttons their button, and instead of the waist button, the working button is buttoned up where their chest is.
Yeah.
That's a little strange for a waist button to be looking like a chest button.
Exactly. So it's always a matter of balance, but avoid by all means to have your buttoning button, that is to say, the button you actually button, too high. I mean, this is not natural. It's as if some people are so high, they want to be stylish, they put the button stand so high that it's as if they are working
It's
on...
like their third nipple or something.
Yeah. Or they are working on, how do you call it, stilts?
On stilts, yes.
Yeah,
that
this
makes the
is-
legs look very long if
Yeah.
you put the button
And
very,
it's
very high.
totally off.
It is, but you know what? Don't throw your jackets away, or don't put them in the back of your closet if your button stance is buttoning way too high up towards your chest and not just above your navel. Don't throw your jacket away. Don't hide it in the closet. Wear it, but just wear it open.
Yes.
It's
And
simple.
Sonya invented a test. She even invented a name for the test. She called it the Napoleon test. So, what is the Napoleon test?
Well, Hugo's
Darling.
posing like Napoleon in his photos sometimes. He has that French blood running through his veins. And so sometimes
Napoleon
it
is doing this.
It just happens that he poses like this. And so I thought, wow. I was looking at where your buttons were compared to your hands.
Yeah.
And it just gave me this like a eureka thing that happened. And so you were doing this with 4 fingers.
Yes.
And I actually afterwards said, where were your 4 fingers placed? They happened to be placed just above your
the
navel.
Yeah.
And your waist button was usually right around where
Just
your
in this area.
index finger
Exactly.
is.
So, as a rule of thumb, without the thumb, actually.
Ignore the thumb.
Yeah,
right?
ignore the thumb as a rule of thumb. That's and it works very well, actually. Okay, you take your hand, you put your hand and you put your pinky finger
Yes.
just above your navel, just above, like touching it. And then you see your navel is here, and then you're buttoning theoretical,
Probably
ideal,
somewhere around.
somewhere just above your index, a little bit higher, a little bit lower, depending on your morphology. But you will feel it very naturally.
Yeah, you can, but I have to make an exception here. If anyone Googles Lindsay Lohan,
Yeah.
she has a navel that's so high, it's already up near around where her chest is.
It's
so
a woman?
You don't know who Lindsay Lohan is?
I'm just French, darling. I'm sorry.
Okay, so if you guys look, and women look, at some kind of Google images, and it was a thing. People talked
And
about
you
how,
know- you know-
and she was on a magazine cover, and they had to edit out her navel because she was wearing a bathing suit, and her navel was so high it looked strange.
Oh, okay, because
So
I was
this
saying,
was the
how do you know
story.
about her navel?
That was the
okay.
whole story.
Okay. But this thing,
If you-
except this thing
Yeah,
that
except
I didn't
this.
know. I'm sorry, I'm not into bathing
That's
suits.
okay.
That's maybe the reason why
Oh,
I'm
you
not
like bathing
American.
suits.
And it's just that, do this. Honestly, it's a very, very handy test. Put your hand, the Napoleon test, remember? Put your hand, your pinky finger just above your navel, and then the button stance is just around just above your index, a little bit higher, a little bit lower, but this is a very, very practical thing.
Very
and it
practical.
works.
If you
It
have
works. So,
no problems with belly buttons.
So we're going to show you a different pictures. For example, here, we're going to do it live. We have some button stands. Sometimes, on the contrary, there are too low.
Yeah,
and it happens.
Not very common, but it happens.
Yeah, it
does.
happens. And sometimes you have some that what you showed you is a kind of a neutral button stand, natural button stands. And of course, some people, and that was a disease of the last 10 years, they were way too high. And you say a final note on buttons. A rookie tailoring mistake is to place buttons so close to the hem of a jacket that it appears that the buttons are dangling from the edge of the fabric.
I had to say that because I would see young tailors, and when they put the buttons on the jacket, they would place the buttons on the edge, almost on the edge of the hem of the jacket, and I just wanted to cut the button off and sew it on myself further away.
Exactly. And then something like more for women, maybe, but also for men. But mainly for women, you say on a double-breasted jacket, take care not to place the top buttons directly on top of the nipples. Well, for obvious reasons.
It looks really weird, and I see it from time to time. But now that it's in my head, of course, it's strange for me. But you know what you can do? If, for example, if you have a 4-on-1 double-breasted jacket, and you notice that the two top buttons are precisely where your nipples are, and it's playing
the one
with your
that you
head.
don't use, they're just here for ornamentation.
Wow!
Right?
If it's a 4-button, or even if it's a 6-button, we'll start with the 4-button. You can remove those 2 buttons and put them underneath.
Yes,
the working button.
or
It
you
worked
can
on my
also
jackets.
put them a little bit inward.
You can put them somewhere else,
Okay,
either above
that's
or below.
not very important, but of course, as Sonya, she's creating things like that everybody is become obsessed with. And now I'm looking at that constantly, and I see some tailors are putting the top button. You understand, on for example, on the 6-on-2, we're talking about the 2 top buttons that you don't use. Right. And try not to put them right on the nipple, especially if you are
And Hugo
woman.
opens his double-breasted jacket, and you can open them sometimes if there's something strange going on until you get it fixed. Yeah.
Okay, you can throw purists, you can throw rotten tomatoes at me. Yes, I do wear my double-breasted suit sometimes opens, and it's kind. Now, I must admit, I like it. It brings some kind of Italian flair.
Well, true. In the summer, when it's so heated, you have to open it just to get air.
Yeah, but even in the winter, that's my rebel spirit. And then the third place. So you remember, first one, everything around the neck, no collar gap, no low resting, and no too high resting neck. That's easy. 3 things to remember. The more balance is the jacket at the middle of your shirt collar. The second is the button stance, the button placement. So it's easy. Use your 4 fingers.
It's so easy. Just where's the working button?
Exactly. 4 fingers just above. It's normally the theoretical best placement, but you will feel it natural. That's the whole idea.
Exactly.
And the third thing, it's about pocket placement, and that's very interesting because she noticed it. And well, we're not going to give names, but it happens to me specifically on some positions on the breast pocket, because it's about the breast pocket and also the hip pocket. But let's start with the breast pocket. Some tailors make this. It's unbelievable that this is such an easy thing to do. When you have been crafting a suit for 60 hours and then all of a sudden you just put your breast pocket.
Well, it was near your belly, but I guess he just got in his tailoring cave and lost perspective.
Yeah.
And you tried to put your pocket square in your
and
chest pocket, and it was
literally in the middle of my belly.
Yeah,
that was really strange.
Yeah, it was very, very, very odd.
So same thing on ready to wear or MTM. Be careful. There's a position.
But more often you'll see the pocket really,
too high,
really high, like almost on the top of the shoulder, and it throws out the proportions. Okay. That took me 9 years to understand. Okay, that's my confession. And most people are going to think that we are insane, especially if you've never seen a Sartorial Talk before. So I apologize for that. But this took me 9 years to understand pocket placement. I don't know why. Most people don't even talk about it either in this field that I know of. Anyway, so it's so simple. Just make sure that, I'm going to point to Hugo's pocket.
Yes.
This is a Chippinelli. The top of the chest pocket or breast pocket is near the underarm.
That's it.
It's very basic.
Simple.
So simple.
Very simple.
Easy
but
to check.
You're going to be, she's giving you a new obsession. You're going to spot everywhere in the street
Appear
breast
down
pocket that are most of the time way too high, or more rarely, but it's even worse, way too low.
If you don't believe us, look at your favorite tailor's picture. If he is an accomplished tailor, you'll see the top of the breast pocket is always beginning around the underarm. Sometimes the breast pocket can hide too far underneath the lapel. And if this is the situation, then you can't even put your pocket square in there because the lapel is coming so far
Yeah,
over.
well, I mean, it happens to me a lot of time because I love...
You love the large lapels.
Large lapels. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can spot in the street the real...
it's not to be
whether it
critical.
is a straight pocket or a barchetta, which is
Yes,
like
I
a
love
boat
how you
in
say
Italy.
that.
But you know, if you are a sartorialist, you know about all that. But we wanted to speak today specifically about the placement. Now, let's go lower on the body. And let's say we spoke about lower pockets, also known as hip pockets. And that's something that, first of all, you speak about the top of the hip pocket position, hip pockets to allow for the functionality of putting something inside your pocket. It sounds very normal.
Okay,
for
it's
a
pretty
pocket.
straightforward. You just reach inside. Oh yeah, this is easy. In my jacket, I can easily put my hands in my pocket. Not that I want to go around putting my hands in my pocket because the purist will say, "Oh, you're harming your jacket. Get your hands out of your pocket. Put them in your trouser pockets." Okay, I understand that. But what if you have a business card, you just want to slip it in your pocket? And what about common sense? When you look at lower jacket pockets and they're really high up on the body, something plays with your mind. You don't really understand what you're seeing. Exception if it's a designer element and they're placed up high on purpose for the design.
Exactly, but not for practicality.
Yes.
And then you say something, many times the top of the hip pocket are aligned perfectly with the lower buttons. That is to say, the top of the hip pocket is aligned with your last button or buttonhole on the jacket, as if there's a horizontal line. And even some tailors make this a pride, that is perfectly aligned. Well, you say my personal preference, and it's the same for me, is that the top of the hip pocket is offset with any buttons or buttonhole to avoid the look of the horizontal line across the body. But this practice, is so common that it may be a preference for other people.
You think we're getting really specific here, but remember, for years we've been preaching against the contrasting belt, because a belt that's a contrasting color with the rest of your outfit is going to make this big line right across the center of your body, and it cuts the beautiful flow of the silhouette. And it's the same concept. If you have buttons and buttonholes and pockets all lined up, it almost looks like there's a belt.
Yeah, but it's a matter of preference.
Yeah, okay,
right?
we're getting really
this
specific
time
here.
Is a matter of preference.
Total preference.
What is very important is that the pockets are placed at the right place for natural movement.
That's the
I
most
think that's
important.
the best test.
Yes.
And except if you have some design objective, but that's another story. And the last thing, but maybe for me, the thing, I must admit, I learned something. I'm still learning after... Together, I think we can say we have more than 2 decades of experience. We've been studying probably tens of thousands of suits and wearing dozens and dozens ourselves and seeing so many thousands of friends wearing suits. And there's something that I never noticed, and you attracted my attention on that, is the pocket, the hip pocket placement. And sometimes it's just really was a eureka moment for me. Sometimes the pockets are too much in the front.
I know. Why do they call them hip pockets? Because they're supposed to be placed somewhere around your hips, not slapped on the front of your body.
Not on the abdomen.
With full clearance on the hip.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to, or you should, I believe, position hip pockets somewhere around the hips.
Yeah, so on the hips and not on the belly to make it short.
Well, they could carry over towards the front of the jacket, which all of them do, but somewhere the hip pocket, somewhere the pocket itself should touch the hip.
Yeah, and I've seen, since you told me that, I've seen catastrophes. I think people with, specifically when you have a little bit of belly, if you drink a little bit too much beer, you eat too much croissant, or you like, too much éclair au chocolat, Huh, Cosmas? You like it? Oh, Cosmas is looking at
He's
the
looking at the
ceiling. Well, he is quite fit, I must admit. But don't put your pockets in front. And that's a common thing. Well, if you go ready to wear in a ready to wear store and you see those pockets too much on your belly, don't buy this jacket.
And the big craze with the safari jacket is, to make an affordable jacket that you can wear more casually and still look like you dressed up instead of, wearing your old t-shirt and blue jeans. So this safari jacket, every time I see safari jacket where the hip pockets are actually around the hips, I'm like very satisfied. But a lot of times they're placed right on the front of the body.
Yeah.
And hey, it's a small detail, but it can make a big difference.
No, it's not a small detail. I think this one with the color gap is maybe the most important. It's a big detail.
All right.
Specifically when you want to look good, and this is where I suppose you buy a jacket. And you're right, with the craze of safari jacket, we see they want to show pockets. Safari jackets is all about pockets.
Just look at my pockets.
Okay, so remember, simplicity always, it makes sense. A hip pocket has to go on the hips.
Somewhere around the hips.
Yeah, about the hips, not on your belly. Okay, so to wrap it up.
Yes.
First, around the collar, no color gap, no low placement, no high placement, balance.
And we show Prince Charles to say it's okay if you have an occasional blip.
Exactly. Second thing, the buttoning button with the Napoleon test. 4 fingers above your navel. This is where your buttoning button should be. Not too high, please, because you look like you are walking on tilts, and not too low because it's just off.
Long torso, short legs.
Yeah, it doesn't work. And then the pocket placement. Please, ladies and gentlemen, look, the breast pocket, not here and not there. Somewhere under the armhole, which is very natural. And then the pockets of the hip, right on the hip. And not on the
somewhere
belly.
at least touching the hip. Yes.
Okay, this was the episode called The Mysteries of the Tailored Jacket. And believe me, it may sound a little bit, small details. We understand, we spend, I don't know, maybe 20, I don't even know, maybe 30 minutes speaking about that. But believe me, first of all, if you are into the sartorial world, these are the three things you should really look at. I mean, for me, it's the same level of importance as the shoulder and, the proportion of shoulder and having a natural shoulder and not a shoulder doing this. These are the 2 or 3 things that are important. So it's of the same importance for me that these details can make or break a suit, literally.
And I think a lot of the people in the sartorial world, they see something and they know something's off, but they can't put their finger on it. So this episode is maybe to try to help you define what's not clicking in your head in terms of why you do or don't like a certain suit.
Exactly. So that was our episode on the mysteries of the tailored jacket. I'm going to close my computer because I want to do my Napoleon test in front of you. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Don't forget, if you want to listen to us, we created a private podcast that is reserved for our Patreon. You go to patreon.com/Sartorial Talks. You'll have to subscribe because this podcast on which we speak about the news on the sartorial world, anything sartorial, we discuss any subject sartorial very often. It's reserved now for our patrons because it helps us to keep this channel free. So I'm sorry, I have to do a little bit of promotion, but we were able to have all this equipment thanks to this Patreon page, and it's very important for us to continue that. So please subscribe if you want to have more content on the podcast format. And we know that many of you are asking for that. So we're very happy to produce that. So Napoleon and Sonya Glynn say to you as usual, 3, 2, 1, cheers.